Welcome to the Sober Social Podcast, a show dedicated to helping individuals in recovery. For this season, we'll be bringing you individuals who helped me through my recovery journey. They played a vital role for me. Through this season, we'll bring you inspiring stories, expert advice, and helpful tips on addiction and recovery. Whether you're in recovery yourself or you know somebody who is, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Sober Social Podcast. Today in the building, we have Rowdy Duncan.
Yeah.
Hey, Rowdy, how are you?
I'm good, man. It's good to be here.
Absolutely.
Good to be here with you in this space.
It's great to have you, man.
Yeah.
Super excited.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff to catch up on.
Yeah.
Rowdy, introduce yourself.
So my name's Rowdy Sunray Duncan. I'm Taos Pueblo from my father. I was actually named after my godfather, whose name was Tell Us Good Morning. And so I'm Rowdy Sunray of the Good Morning in my culture. I teach communication at Phoenix College and just try to have my own business, trying to go out there and just make the world a better place for me and everybody else to live in. And then, do good for my family along the way. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Rowdy, you're one of the smartest people I know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like you are very emotionally intelligent. That's the
Thank
word.
you. Yeah.
You are extremely emotionally intelligent. I have met maybe one or two people who are as emotionally intelligent as you are in my whole life. And that's critical.
Yeah.
Especially for making a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Like at first when you said smartest, I was like, what? That doesn't even make sense. But when you add in that emotional intelligence, like some of that is just like you've lived life a little bit and you got some scars and scrapes and you live through those things and you know how important grace is and things like that. So I appreciate that. That really does touch me. Thank you.
Yeah, honestly. Before we even get too deep into anything else, how did you become so emotionally intelligent? And from when I knew you about 10 years ago to where you are now, two different places.
I think a lot of it is I had to get to a place where I became comfortable in knowing myself and my value.
Right.
And I think the other part as far as really deepening that emotional intelligence is one, you got to focus on your own healing and your background. I've always been a person that needed people to connect and a place to belong to, which means then I need to create community, right? That was a survival technique. And now it's a superpower, right? Like it's something I needed just to get by because I grew up in Texas. There's not any native people in Texas. So I had to get adopted by the Mexicans in my neighborhood.
Right.
And then I went up to Wisconsin, Minnesota, and there are more native people, but I'm not that tribe, right? I don't know how to connect with some of those folks, but you have to find a way through. Some of my best friends that you met at my shower, right? We connected over love of old school hip hop back in the day, right? It's really knowing every human's inherently got gifts, right? And there's people that you definitely have an attractive energy to, but then there's people that have more of a repulsive energy, which isn't bad, right? It's just finding who's at the right frequency. So for me, it's being able to find and get a sense of who folks are and then know who's good and then don't let good people go.
That's huge. That's really, really big. Okay, so Rowdy, if you could tell, because for me, right, when I say emotional intelligence, it's really being good with people, managing your levels, like you said, right? Understanding people, their frequency. If you could tell us one thing that we can learn from you on how to be more emotionally aware, emotional intelligence is actually cool because nowadays, even companies are looking for candidates, when they apply for jobs that have a high emotional quotient rather than an intellectual quotient. Tell me one thing you do, one trick, one way. If you could tell everybody out there, what is one thing?
So one quick note I want to give you on that. They say in business right now that having a high EI is actually the same amount of value in business as an MBA.
Wow. Just
having high EI alone. Because again, what's the point in knowing business if you don't know people? So I think the root of having good EI is really self-awareness, right? If you don't know you or what's going on with you, then you have no idea where you're at or what you're feeling, right? If you don't understand, I'm kind of frustrated right now, then you don't get a sense of what's going on. Or if say you're in some type of space and I'm not feeling a connection, I got to tune into that, right? But a lot of emotional intelligence is really getting a sense of what's going on with me and how am I feeling about what's happening to me right now. Getting to a space where you really can own, I've got a new baby.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I've had to get to the place where that little guy just terrifies me. And I got to be like, I'm scared and I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like, it was funny. We were going through a moment, my wife and I, and we were talking and we were, not arguing, but, just in conflict, right?
Yeah.
And he can feel that. And I had to be like, oh, we got to lower our tone. And then even with him, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I'm scared. I'm not mad. It looks like mad because I don't know how to be scared safe. And man, he calmed down because he felt that I knew really where I was and that I was saying sorry. It's funny because he doesn't speak English, but he knows emotions. So I'd say the number one key is self-awareness of your own emotions and your own emotional state. And then also paying attention to when I'm around other people, how do they make me feel? Do they raise me up? Do they make me feel good? You can meet somebody that's worth $1 billion and you can meet somebody that's making minimum wage. You want to be around this minimum wage person because they're vibrating at the right frequency. Absolutely. You know what I mean? So that would be, for me, the first place to get started is really like looking at what am I feeling? What emotions am I afraid to feel? And learning how to feel them better. And how do I feel when I'm around certain people?
Phenomenal response, Rowdy. I got to throw in that I think having a low EQ was probably what made me an addict in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
I really think so.
I can see that.
Yeah, I think that I was unaware of the people, of who I was. I was unaware of like the frequency around the people that I was in. And I just wanted to fit in.
Well, and not just that, like a lot of the root of wanting to run to avoidance. I mean, because addiction's all about avoidance, right? Yeah. It doesn't matter what the substance is. It could be cupcakes. It could be work. Like you can get addicted to a lot of things, right? And it's because I don't want to feel this thing. Most people are addicted to their phones. I'm slightly uncomfortable. Let me check out and be on social media instead of like really dealing with I'm feeling this thing. But then you're right too. If you don't deal with the fact that you're not good at dealing with some of these emotions, you're going to find yourself around other people that are coping the same way as you, right? Or they're going to be like, this is how I cope. Like, you won't even think, you won't even know you have problems. And then you become a reflection of who's around you. There's this great quote I heard is, look at the people that are around you. And if those people don't inspire you, that's not a circle that's bringing you up. That's a cage that's keeping you down.
That's a great one.
I loved it. I wish I know who said it because I love it. It's one of those things I saw and I just took a picture of.
No, that's a really, really good one, Rowdy. And I think that's how I was and that's how my life was when I met you. Yeah. In a way.
Well, it's funny because like you were in those two places though. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you were in and with those folks, but then you were having to hang out with me and the folks that we were with too. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And like, I think it was that dissonance probably that like seeded, because I didn't know you. Like when I knew you, I didn't know this guy. I mean, I felt the good in you, but it was down there. You know what I mean? And you weren't afraid to own it and bring it out. Like I was always happy to have you there and it was always good to have you around, but I couldn't like lean on you or like trust you to go, right? But I think like you being around the people that we were with and then, Jim, like all the people that are going those like little leadership things, it draws it out of you.
Big leadership things.
So like, yeah, thank you. It draws it out of you, right? And that's, I think, kind of what happened when you were there.
I agree. So, do you remember when we first met?
Yeah, I remember when you came in my office.
Tell the story.
So, oh man, it wasn't, you came in my office. I think the semester was going to start either the next week or week and a half. Like you stumbled in and stuff was about to get real, like really quick. And you're like, hey, I'm here for some classes. And I'm like, brother, man, like there's not a lot of options and I don't know what to tell you to do or take. But at the time, I think you were focused with engineering. Was it aeronautical?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Aeronautical engineering. And I was like, okay, all those classes that you would need are full because those people have been positioning forever, right? Absolutely. And you're just stumbling in like right before it's time to get going. And I was like, and then too, I felt like your wide-eyed, somewhat scaredness. And I was like, hey, well, there's not a lot of things. And I know if you come with me and you do some of this stuff, at the very least, I can get you on a good start. Yeah. So I signed you up for Hum 190 with Jim Rubin.
Absolutely.
You did the Emerging Leaders Retreats, and then you took Com 101. Yeah. I signed you up for everything that I...
There was English 101, some of the basic stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the honors classes too.
Right, yeah. But like I sensed, one of the things that I know that you've gotten to appreciate about you is and I hope you don't take this in a bad way.
Yeah, sure.
Naivete is one of those things people think, oh, you're a rube, right? Actually, there's a real innocence and trust and lightness in a person that's naive. Michelle's naive because she doesn't think of bad things.
Right.
Because she's so damn good.
Yeah.
As a person, right?
Right.
Like, I admire naivete because, like, there's an inherent goodness in it. But then that naivete can be taken advantage of by that bad circle, right? I think that's what really, well, one, I always needed people in my classes. But then two, I just felt like you just needed someone that was going to be around watching you, getting a sense of where you were and how things were going. And I'm glad that I was able to keep an eye on you too.
Absolutely.
Congrats.
That was really cool. So Rowdy, you ended up being my professor. And like you said, kind of guided me through the early years. You know, what was really cool was as I've gotten, because you get experiences in life, as you get older, your brain is able to process more.
Yeah.
Things that happen to you when you're younger, you don't understand.
Yeah.
But your brain is just collecting data on experiences that you have as you go through life.
Yeah.
But as you get older, the processing power of your brain, your mind, your soul begins to increase and is now able to process all those experiences out. And that experience was one of those that like took me a while to process, right? And later on, what I started to realize, because not only that, but you left out the part of the story where you were like, okay, dude, go take this test.
Oh,
And then, you might qualify for a scholarship.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, there's no way I qualify for the scholarship, literally.
Yeah.
And so I go and I take the test and I qualify for like the best scholarship there is at that point.
Full ride.
Like literally full ride. And I'm offered a full ride to go to Paradise Valley Community College.
Yep.
And I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, like this is like, what? This is just like beyond me. This is absurd.
Yeah.
And I'm going through school.
Yeah.
And I think all of that like is something that I took for granted then. But the light bulb came on in my life, which is there's people that are coming through that like God can use to point you to things that like otherwise wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't take those people for granted.
Yeah.
Because
I agree.
he tends to use the same people over and over again.
Yeah. We can trust them.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Like the same people tend to be there over and over again.
Yeah.
So at what point did you kind of realize that like, man, Wilson is like, so because at this point, like it's great, it's cool. At what point did it hit you like Wilson is struggling through some things and he needs to.
Well, it wasn't really honestly till you brought it to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because like at the time you were really good at being there and just like floating along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you were the happy face at the back of the room.
Floating for sure.
But you didn't want to stand out. You didn't want to like have anything extra loaded on you.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I would ask for like interns and you were like,
yeah.
that wouldn't be even on your radar. But it's honestly when you came to me and you told me that, stuff happened, or like when your grades went down and we had to talk about what was going to happen with the scholarship, right? Like it was really those like, so I didn't know, right? It wasn't like I inherently knew.
Yeah.
I just put you in a system where there's going to be crossroad checks where I knew there was going to be times where I'd see what was happening and there'd be the opportunity for intervention, right? I mean, I know you know some of the, like, I'm not going to tell your story about when and what those intervention moments were.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can. That's why we're here.
You tell me that thing and then I'll tell you my like sight on what that was.
Yeah, sure. I don't really remember it too much or too vividly, but it was something around the lines of, I don't know who it was, whether it was, well, we're not mentioning names, but one of the people that I was in the program with, like they could see, because like what I realized was while I was using, I'm one person.
Yeah.
When I'm not using, I'm a whole different person.
Yeah.
Right. So they kind of saw that other part that was like, oh, something's off here.
Yeah.
Like, why is he doing that?
Yeah.
That's weird. Like, why is he changing? And I talked to my mom, first episode, and she's like, and I asked her, and I was like, well, how did you know though? And she was telling me, it's just a sense. Like I could just sense it. Like
she knows.
Yeah. Like
you can't hide from your mom.
Exactly. Like you're one person and you're not. And it turns out that like everybody else also knew.
Yeah.
Everybody else that I've talked to that was close to me, they like, yeah, dude. Like we could kind of tell. Like as soon as you were doing something wrong, we could tell. We knew. And so I think she at that point picked that up. And I think she brought it to you. Somebody said something to you or something.
Well,
and they were like,
do know, even people that bring things to me, there were people in that program that were doing their own things with their own issues and their own problems. You know what I mean? Like everybody thinks they get like, oh, he doesn't know. Like I know more than you think. But I also know it's not my responsibility to talk to all things, right?
Right.
But yeah, like I know the one thing that really happened is it turned out we were putting on a leadership program for someone else. And it came to me that you were getting high mid-program. And you were going to come back high. And I think you even had a piece or a part to deliver before you did, which makes sense, right? Because if you're afraid, you're fleeing from the greatness within you.
No excuses. Yeah, no.
But that's how it works, though. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to tamp that down, you're like, well, let's go check out. I won't do good because I don't even have to recognize there's good in here. Yeah. You know, and we had to have a very real conversation about it because when it's you and just you, I'm like, hey, that's your life. It's bumps, right? But now when you're messing up somebody else's, you know, like when you said those things that like really bloomed later, those are those seeds. And honestly, those seeds never would have bloomed if you didn't stay in a place later in your life where those would have a place to germinate, right?
Right.
Like if you weren't doing what you were doing at Georgia, that stuff wouldn't have grown in the same way. If you weren't in the entrepreneur group, right? With all the books. They just would have just stayed there, gone dormant and died. That happens. And I have to be okay with that. They brought that to me and we had to have a very real talk. And I think already you had been on probation in the honors program. And so it was funny back in the day when Wilson would get into trouble, like this is what Wilson would do. Just this and then silence for a minute. And that's how I was like, uh-oh, there's something we got to do. But that's where, I mean, I probably laid into people a lot harder back then than I do now. But that was where we were having a moment because I'm like, look, now you're messing with somebody else's seeds.
Yeah.
And that's not okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're in your own journey, you're messing up your own stuff. That's your life, right? That's your consequences. But now your choices are affecting the potential consequences and greatness of somebody else.
Absolutely.
I'm not okay with watching that.
Yeah.
And that's where we had a much more harsh, deep conversation. And that's where, you know, I was telling you, I was like, look, man, some people need that particular substance to get by for many reasons, right? Like it's also a medicine, right? And it's also one of the things people use to just check out, and it can completely sap all your motivation and drive.
Absolutely.
And
that was my case.
That was your thing, right? Yeah. And I'm like, look, man, like I'm worried about you because the one downfall of this thing, you're not going to overdose on pot, but it will suck all the will from you, and you'll just be like this forever.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to go party. Like, it doesn't look like a party to me. It looks like everybody smokes a bunch and passes out. I'm like, where's the life in that thing?
Yeah.
Right? It's just avoidance.
Absolutely.
You know? And so that's where we had that real conversation of like, hey, this is this thing and this is how this thing works. Because pot was one of the drugs that my parents abused. You know, I remember being real little and people are passed out in various disarray. And I'm a little kid walking through trying to eat whatever, you know, and figure that stuff out and being afraid, being like, everybody's passed out. I'm in charge. I'm 4. Like, and that's what I was most worried about is like already you were really great at hiding, but there was still enough in you that you put yourself out there. If you're hiding, even if you put yourself out there, you're never going to arise.
Absolutely.
And it was really that moment, I think, from my, you know, my lens of that story, I never knew how that resonated with you. You know what I mean? Like,
what do you mean?
Like, well, the program came to an end.
Yeah. Okay.
Like after that, we had a conversation, you finished, but then like we didn't see each other as much anymore. You know what I mean? Wow. Yeah. There was a period of time where like, it's not like we didn't like each other or anything, but we were just in different circles.
Yeah, dude. I mean, at some point, even my mom, like because what happens is you start abusing a substance and it's like, think about 3 circles, right? 1 circle, circle 2 on the outside of circle, and then the third circle.
Right, yeah.
Right. In the middle, what happens when you're abusing a substance is normally the bigger circle is supposed to be like your general friends.
Yeah.
The circle in the middle maybe is supposed to be like your work, you know, things you do to earn financially. And then the smaller circle is supposed to be your tight circle. Yeah. Super tight. Yeah. Family, and it's your like hierarchy of importance. Yeah. Like the things that should really, that matter the most. And when you start abusing a substance, what happens is it eats from the outside circle. Right? In. Yeah. And then in the middle circle, where my mom and my siblings were supposed to be, I replaced it with my drug dealer. Yeah. Because I called him often. Yeah. I replaced it with like paraphernalia. Yeah. Like the substance, the importance of that. Now the circle on the outside where I was supposed to be financially performing. Yeah. I replaced that with only working to get money,
fuel the habit.
To fuel the habit.
Yeah.
Right. And then the circle on the outside, I replaced it with people who like I could use drugs with. If I can use drugs with you, I can be your friend at that point in my life. Right. And it's just super, super sad. But I think you caught me at a time where like it was kind of half and half.
Yeah.
I was kind of in and out. I was
Yeah.
like, I still had ambition.
Yeah.
Like I still have a lot
did.
of ambition. I still really, really want to be good and be better. But at the same time, I am like slowly now replacing all of that with these things. Friends who didn't have any ambition, friends who didn't want to go to college, friends who I didn't understand at that time why they didn't want to go to college.
Yeah.
Because I really, really wanted to go to school.
Yeah.
Right? Friends who didn't want to do this.
I could
friends,
see that when I first met you. Like I'm just going here because I'm supposed to be here.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And it was being replaced at that medium time. But I want to explore what you said earlier on about your family. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy. Because we are like complete opposites. I grew up in a family where absolutely no one abused any substances.
Yeah.
And then I turned out to abuse them.
Yeah.
Whereas you grew up in a family where everybody, it seems like abuse substances around you. I mean, the story that you just told is extremely vivid.
Yeah.
Being a 4-year-old trying to like walk over people who are passed out, like being in charge, making sure nobody comes in. Like, how did you, and I know we've talked before, have you ever used drugs before, ever?
The only thing that I've ever used, and I feel comfortable telling you, we've talked about this before.
Absolutely, yes.
So I've done psychedelic therapy to really get at and deal with some traumas, because some of those medicines, and I believe these are medicines, because again, right, it's not all, Robitussin can help you with a cold, or you can get crunk off of that, right? Like, depends on how you use the medicine. But I used those to really like dig at some really big issues that I needed to fix before the little one came. So that's the only substance I've, that and like a knee surgery.
I should rephrase the question.
Yeah.
Have you ever abused substances before?
No, I've never drank nothing. Like, I mean, I've tasted alcohol, but I'd spit it out.
Wow.
So I've never been drunk, never been high, like outside of like specific knee surgery or doing like the psychedelic therapy. Otherwise, I have not. Like, I felt as though if I couldn't control things, that was the only thing I could control, right? If I'm around all these passed out people, well, I want to control me, which also leads to having like a bit of control issue, right? So I had to learn how to give that away and trust and have faith.
Yeah.
But that's, nothing. Like, I was afraid I was going to end up like everybody else.
So you basically growing up and seeing that, like, change your trajectory.
You know what happened? I don't know if you've heard this story either. So my dog, Charlie, the Labrador, was my best friend.
Wow.
And I remember we went under a bush when everybody was all passed out. And I was sitting there and I was scared. And thank God Charlie was there. And I promised Charlie at that time, I was never going to drink. I was never going to do drugs.
Wow.
And I'm never going to have sex. People are using each other's sex is another thing that can be abused, sex addiction, right? And so I see that and I'm afraid of that because I see people using each other, hurting each other with all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I can say, like, I did keep 2 of those promises,
well, there you go.
Thankfully. But really, I think everybody needs to rebel a little bit, right? What's hard, though, and what I've never really understood because I took a different path, is most addicts rebel by doing the same thing as everybody else. For me, I was like, no, I'm not going to do what everybody else did. But then also, luck, fate, circumstance put me in circles where I was around people that didn't do those things either. Right? Like, if I didn't have those people with me in high school, middle school, college, who knows, right? Like, I could have been susceptible because, like, I have the addiction. Like, you ask me, I'm an addict. I just haven't taken anything yet, right? I didn't start the pattern.
Yeah.
So that's what kept me safe.
Wow. That's really cool. I wish I had that perspective because in another episode, I talked to my sister, Stephanie, and I asked her, because we went to the same high school for a while. And the first time I ever tried, like, any substance whatsoever, we went to the same high school and I was like, because I always told myself she probably never got offered anything, right? Like, and she's like, no, yeah, I did all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I had a really good friend who, like, and I knew that actually. I was like, oh, yeah, that your friend used to, like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I had a really good friend. And, like, she always tried to convince me and I just knew not to. Yeah. Like, I just knew that I not to. It was just simple to me. Yeah. And I was like, really? Yeah. It was just that simple to you? Whereas me, I was just extremely curious all the time. Like, between that curiosity and lack of emotional intelligence, like, I was just like, yeah, I'm going to try everything. Because I actually just didn't know. I literally didn't realize.
You know what's interesting? I had this insight recently, like, again, with some of my therapy and the personal work that I'm doing. I think there's a virality to negative patterns that need susceptible people to survive, right? So if you think about addiction, the only way addiction can thrive is it has to thrive and be communicated and moved through people, right?
Interesting.
And so, like, Trauma, same thing, right? Trauma needs to make and create more victims to create more perpetrators, right? And so anything that's a negative human pattern, it has a virality to it and a need to spread to survive, almost in the same way like a virus would, right?
Interesting.
And so have you ever met an addict that's just like, no, I'm good. I'm not trying to get anybody else to do that. They're always pushing it on somebody else.
Absolutely.
Because they need these mirrors of okayness.
Yeah.
Because they know inside that it's not helping, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of those things that's helping me understand what's happening with addiction, because it's this pattern that's happening in the world that's living through people that if it's around good, healthy folks, it can't survive. That's why you ran from me and us then.
Yes, I did.
Because you couldn't stand to be around who we were being and still do those things.
Absolutely. No, 100%. And that's actually so interesting and insightful. So say that again, but say it more general. So basically people run away from what they know they should be doing because they can't stand
Well, though, like if you're in a pattern that's destructive and hurtful, right? Like if I'm addicted to negative, like bad relationships, right? I can't be around a healthy couple because they remind me of what's possible, right? So I automatically reject a healthy couple if I'm used to dysfunctional relationships. If I'm an alcoholic, well, I'm not going to hang around with people who are not alcoholics, or at least don't drink, right? Because they're a mirror to me of what I could be. And I can't stand the truth of what they're showing me. That's why I have to reject them. And I'm not rejecting them. I'm rejecting what I'm not ready to accept in my life yet, right? Because like that truth of who they are and how they're being is something that I'm not ready for yet.
Wow. Well, that's great. That's really, really like awesome. And I think a lot of people out there can learn from what you just said, because that applies to every facet of life, basically, right? Like if you don't want to go to the gym, you're going to, well, maybe not. You're going to run away from anybody who tries to tell you. You know what? I've gotten to a point in my life where I realize that I don't run away from like people. So even if I have friends who go to the gym, and I haven't been in the gym in like 10 years. Yeah. Like, well, I actually have, but like, even if I don't run, recently, I don't run away from them. Right. Because I realize that like, even though I'm not going to do what they want me to do, right, what they're always trying to convince me to do, like, I need to still be around that. Yeah. Like, because I know someday I'm going to need to change it and do it. Yeah. But I think the higher the pressure and the more they turn the pressure up, the more I then slide away.
Oh, so you have to come in your own space.
Exactly. Right. Or like, it just has to be organic. Yeah. Right? The more they slide the pressure up of like, come on, man, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. And I'm just that kind of person.
Is that always or now?
Now, especially.
You know why though, right? It's because from before, right? You're like, I can't trust people that pressure me.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think now it's more like, okay. And you know, actually, man, I don't really like when people pressure me. Yeah. Even till now. Me no gusta. Yeah. Like, me no gusta at all. Me absolutely no gusta. Like, I mean, how many times do I have to say me no gusta for people to understand? Like, I really don't. Yeah. Like, so because... And this comes into play, especially with like sales guys. Yeah. And we had a situation where there's like this one sales guy that was just like, come on, man, like, do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. You got to do this. And I was with my senior operations director, like in an event. And then they were trying to get me to do more, do. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there going, and then she goes, because she knows me really well. Yeah. So she goes, hey, dude, if you keep telling him to do this, he can do it, but he won't. Yeah. Because you keep, not to. Yeah, because you keep telling him, because I believe in this thing it's called the 4 A's, right? You acknowledge first. Yeah. And then you accept. And then you act and you attack. Yeah. Right? So I acknowledge things first, like I acknowledge a scenario. Yeah. And then I accept it. Yeah. And then I'm going to act on it, which is basically me deciding what to do or what not to do. And then once I decide, OCD, I'm on it. Like, I'm doing it. I can't stop. Oh my God, I'm doing it. And I can't stop doing it because I'm going to like, and an example is if at work, right, there's like an issue, maybe say like, I'm looking at the numbers and like clocking in. People are clocking in like 50% of the workforce is now clocking in 10, 20 minutes late. Then I'm going, okay, what's going on here? First of all, I acknowledge that situation. Yeah. And then I accept it, that this is a reality and it's a reflection of me and my company, right? Because I'm the head and everything flows through there. Right. And I love that attitude. Absolutely. And then I go, okay, how do I act on this? So am I going to just absolutely like fire hose? But probably not usually. It's more like rain. Yeah. It starts to drizzle. Yeah. Then I start to go, okay, hey guys, like everybody's kind of showing up 10 minutes late. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on here? We got to fix this.
Right.
Right. And then I start looking, then it drops usually about 5%.
Right.
Like, there's 45%
Yeah.
people are still clocking
Yeah.
in late.
I know you know.
Yeah, exactly. And then you
Yeah.
have to roll out the policy.
Yeah.
And then it has to be like, okay, everybody needs to sign that they're going to
Yeah.
show up on time. That usually kills it. Then there's that 10%
Yeah.
that still don't correct the behavior.
Mhm.
And then the fire hose comes out.
Right.
It's like, okay, like, hey man, like in front of everybody, you kind of, right? Like, and this is not the culture here, right? So everybody needs to know. And so that's just basically how I think, right? Like,
Right.
and that's all that pressure thing.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that you said what you said, because I wonder if like there's that fear of pressure. And I think it has to be.
Well, but like there's very like the more sensitive you get, the more you notice like the power of vacuums and pressures. You know what I mean? Because like you're a vacuum person, right? Like I remember when we first started working together, I would like pitch things to you a lot.
Right.
And then I finally got to a place and I'm like, I don't need to pitch stuff. I'll just keep doing good stuff. And then when Wilson thinks I need to do something else, he'll let me know.
Yeah.
And then the second that happened, everything was good.
Yeah.
You know, because I didn't need to sell on anything anymore.
Absolutely.
Right. But really recognizing like, where's a vacuum? What's attracting you to something? And is it a person? Is it a thing? Is it an idea? Like, because if you're at the right frequency, you're going to find these vacuums to amazing things all the time. And if you're at the wrong frequency, you're going to get vacuumed into like shit puddles like over and over again because you're not taking care of where this is at. Again, pressure's not always bad. Pressure can be good situations, good scenarios, right? Like, pressure is also a necessary force of change.
Absolutely.
Right? But if it's like, I'm putting this pressure on you because I want you to do this thing,
Yeah.
I mean, like, well, what's the why in that thing, right? Like if I was like, hey, I'm going to put some pressure on you, but if you have a real trust in me,
Exactly,
right?
yes.
It's going to be a whole different deal. And maybe it's not
Absolutely.
pressure.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Maybe that force you're feeling is even different.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. It's pressure, again, the 4 W's.
Yeah.
Pressure has to do with that.
Yeah.
Like it's the who's putting pressure on me,
Yeah.
the what they're putting pressure on me for,
Yeah.
the why they're putting pressure on me for,
Right.
and in some instances where they're putting pressure on me at. Like, where are we?
Yeah.
Right. So say for instance, if someone's talking to me publicly, like which is the where, like, and they're putting pressure on me publicly, yeah, that's dead. The what, the why, the who doesn't matter anymore. If the where is wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And
And that's a lot of trust.
there's a really good story, I think,
Yeah.
like about this, and it happens to me all the time. Like it's like Jesus in the Bible, his mom, like she's putting pressure on him at the wedding to turn water into wine.
Yeah.
And I think, like in that instance, it didn't matter that she was his mom,
Yeah.
but the where she was doing it, like was like, okay, mom, hold on 1 second,
Yeah.
like just give me a break. My time has not come yet. I
Yeah.
know you see this, I see it too,
Okay.
and that's the same story with me and my mom,
Yeah.
because she's the who, she's the only person.
Uh-huh.
Like, and there's even another funny story, man, where some people knew that if they could put pressure on her, then that's the only thing that could put pressure on me.
Yeah.
And they were right, because I was like, they were really like,
Was that like a trespass though? Were they going around you?
they were going around me.
So
to her.
that hurt your relationship with the other person.
Absolutely,
Oh.
unequivocally, without a
Oh,
doubt.
dude, you don't do
There's
that to
no
Nigerian
questions.
people. Dude, you don't do that to Nigerian people. Like working the parents, man.
There was no
They'll be like, okay,
question
that'll be a yes in this
at
have to
all.
thing, but we're done.
There's no questions at all, man. 100% hurt my relationship with them. I don't like that. You know,
It's
like,
subversive.
It
It's
is, you know?
manipulative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And in that instance, like, even though it's my mom, like, it's like the who, because she's the only person that I really feel like, and like you said, you have to earn the right to put pressure on people.
Yeah.
She's really the only person I feel like can really put the pressure on.
Were you able to talk to her and ask her about like the dynamics of
Like,
how
we
that
had a
worked? Did
whole
she get it?
conversation. Absolutely.
Good.
I think she did.
That's
because
good.
she understands that, like,
Yeah.
you know, man, not a lot of, I don't really give a ton of people, like, which is that whole circle thing again.
Right, yeah,
Like,
the
I kind of
access.
understood the access,
Mhm.
right? Like, I don't really, like, give
Yeah.
that kind of access to, like, a lot of people. There's different, like, access points
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff, but I tend to try to keep things in the circles in which they belong.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, like, in that instance, man, like, we had to have a conversation, and I was like, Mom, look, like, you can't let people do that, because I don't let them do that to me about you.
Right.
Right. So, like, I
Yeah.
don't come to you and
Yeah.
be like,
I'm
like,
guarding your
Exactly.
Yeah.
If they come to me, I simply
good.
say, hey, look, you got to talk to her, man. Like, you know, do you have her number? And if you don't, I can ask her to give it to you, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. But, you know, man, fast forward to us reconnecting again. So, like I
Yeah.
said, after the whole conversation, I kind of felt like ashamed, I think was the word, because I was really having a good time with you know, with the whole honors thing. Like,
Yeah.
so that was really cool because we did a whole lot of things, right?
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And like a mark was made on my life
Yeah.
because one of the trainings that we went through was, and it's crazy because I still remember like the acronyms today. Like I remember EL.
Yeah.
I remember Mosaic, maximizing our society as an inclusive community.
Yep.
I remember Diversity Inc.
Yep.
Like all these were like 3 pivotal trainings
Yeah.
that we went through
Yeah.
that absolutely reshaped my mind.
Mm-hmm.
It restructured, like I'm talking renovation. My foundation went from being able to handle a bungalow to handling like a skyscraper, man.
Isn't it weird how you use those like templates and thoughts to measure like the quality of other things? So
Yeah.
you'll be like, oh, this is like really good. This is like EL level. This is DI
Exactly.
level. Or you'll be like, this is not quite at a Mosaic level. I mean, it's all
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
You know, I can see the effort, but it doesn't build. It's not
Yeah.
as seamless, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And-
You don't
and-
see things the
And,
same.
and what's really cool is like Mosaic impacts those 3 circles we talked about.
Mhm.
Like all those trainings were all encompassing.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas now, like only a few books, like John Maxwell's really good about
Yeah.
this. In his books, like his books also will encompass all 3 circles of your life
Yeah.
if you really listen.
Yeah.
Covey, exactly.
man.
Stephen,
So good.
like they'll impact everything, all 3 levels if you listen.
Yeah.
Whereas there's some trainings I go that only impact 1.
Yeah.
Which is that like financial circle.
Right.
Right. That's the
Yeah.
only impact it has really on my life. The other ones are a little more fluffy. Maybe they'll impact the whole like friendship group
Yeah.
outside,
Mhm.
or like maybe a singular group of who you are as a person.
Yeah.
But like Mosaic was really great. It really did, man.
Yeah.
Like, and fast forward to after that training, I went off to college at the University of Georgia, which
Yep.
was really crazy to me because, you know, the reason I went to Atlanta was Cranston Forte.
Oh,
Rest in
yeah.
peace. Great guy.
Yeah.
Shortly after I served as the president of the Male Entrepreneurship Network.
Empowerment.
The
Yeah.
Male Empowerment
Yeah.
Network.
Yep.
Exactly. Not entrepreneurship.
It's all right. I got you.
And after that, like I went on this trip to Atlanta and I
Yeah.
was like, oh,
Oh my
this is
God.
great.
In Atlanta,
Like,
amazing.
Literally, man.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like,
Somebody said once,
wow.
they said Denver is like Atlanta for white people.
It is.
I never
It
saw
is.
it the same again.
No,
I was
seriously,
like,
man.
that's wild. But I mean, you know what I mean? You went to
It
like
is.
like America Black Mecca.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
a whole different experience, man.
Whole different experience.
Yeah.
I mean, like and yeah, you are right about that whole Denver thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's nuts.
yeah, man. It was great because I remember going there distinctly, like after one of the events, we went to this party at Morehouse. And it's funny because that party actually changed my life.
Yeah.
Because I saw, like, I had a conversation with a couple of kids.
Yeah.
It was a graduation party thing.
Oh, okay.
I had a conversation with a couple of kids who had just graduated.
Mm-hmm.
And he's telling me that he's going to go work for Mercedes-Benz.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, that had never been on my radar before.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It just had never been on my radar. Like, I was like, oh, you're going to work for who? Them? Oh, great. And then another guy was graduating, telling me he's going to go work for like Charles Schwab. And then another guy graduated, he was going to work for Apple.
Yeah.
I come back and I said
Brothers?
that. No, just different guys.
Oh, okay.
And they're all black.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, brothers. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you meant my brothers.
No, 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 no,
brother.
no,
You
like-
have one brother. You know
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
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 But yeah, like, yeah, man.
Well, but I mean, like until you see that much, you know what I mean? Because it's not that. Because if you saw one brother
Yeah.
going to Charles Schwab, you're like, oh, he's amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But then you're
yeah.
like, you're talking to 3 dudes, and you're like, Charles Schwab, Mercedes-Benz. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, like.
all of you,
But that's the thing, though. You didn't believe in here
that it was possible
for
for me.
you, right? And then you
Yeah.
saw these reflections of success.
Absolutely.
And then, but that's the thing, man. Travel, meeting people. There's something about seeing somebody like you doing something. And then you're like, that could be me. You know, like when I met Michelle the first time, she asked me about applying for the All USA scholarship. And she's like, do you think I could do it? And I was like, why not?
Yeah.
Why not you? I mean, somebody got to win. Why not you?
Yeah.
But most people don't even ask why. And then they're too afraid to ask the next one, which is
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah.
I mean, those 2 questions are some of the most freeing things.
Yeah.
You know, like, why am I stuck here? Why won't I try?
Yeah.
And then when you're like, oh, I would want to apply. Well, why not? I mean, they need somebody.
Yeah.
Why not you?
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
like those are empowering things.
Absolutely. 100%. No, you're right. And it's funny because now the way I think about the world is always, why not me? Always.
Yeah.
Like there's everything I think about is you can't tell me any. I just don't want to go to space. If not, I would figure out a way to get there.
Yeah, I'm
like,
sure
whether it
you
be a
would.
10-year, 50,
I think you would have
15
been
year.
there already.
Like, I just don't want to
Yeah.
go because I think it'll thin your bones or something like that. I'm good. And then you get
Man,
to
I just
eat
like
liquid
Earth.
food.
I just
Me
like
too.
Earth,
You know,
man.
like-
Earth wants you to live here. Non-Earth is trying to kill you. Like, I love
Exactly.
Earth, man.
Like I like it down here too.
Seriously.
So yeah, man, like I go there and then I come back and I set a goal for like a year.
Mhm.
I'm thinking I got to get up there. I got to figure it out. And I hit that goal. And I, like you said, why not you? I applied. I didn't think that they would. I applied there. I applied to Texas. I wanted to be a frog for a while. I applied for TCU.
Yeah.
And then all of them came back and they accepted me.
Wow.
And I was like, oh crap, I'm going to UGA.
Have you won the pitch by this point?
No. Oh gosh, no. This
Okay.
was the pitch would come about 4 years later.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right. The pitch would come
Again,
about
because you were off my radar so hard for so
for a
long.
while.
Yeah.
I basically fell off your radar for what, 10 years? Was it 10 years up to?
I mean, I'd still
Maybe
see
9.
you or see you around, and we were cordial. You know what I mean? But like, there was never like a thing that would want to, like every time I saw you, you weren't interested in like rekindling anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a mutual respect. It's
Yeah.
good to see you, but like,
Yeah.
and that's fine. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, we don't have to be down forever.
Yeah.
You know, because like, I don't know where you're going to go or what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
I just hope I invest something that's going to pay off someday.
And you did.
Thankfully.
It was great. You really did.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to that. That experience was crazy.
Yeah.
That's when my eyes were really open, and I was like, dude, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Because now I'm away from everything else that I thought that I was blaming that was the problem.
Yeah.
And dude, I ended up going to UJ for like 4 years and like maybe accruing like only a few classes. Like I basically failed almost every class.
Really?
Yeah, dude. It was crazy. So I'm just basically updating you on what that time frame
Yeah.
was like. I really started to see that I had a problem,
Yeah.
a big issue.
Yeah.
And so I fought through it,
Yeah.
tried to figure it out, many things, eviction, like crazy stuff, like twice actually getting evicted,
Oh, wow.
eventually packing up my stuff, losing my dad, which then really just made everything.
Yeah.
Just
I
kinda-
read that blog post because I didn't know that story either.
Yeah.
Like when I heard that story, I was like, oh, yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, man. It really did. Like
Yeah.
turning that on, that really just made everything click. Man, it's funny because I ended up graduating with straight A's.
Yeah.
Like the final 2 years when I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. At some point, my senior year in college, I decided not to get straight A's anymore.
Yeah.
Because then I realized straight A's are actually a fraud. Like it's like, I mean, and
It's not really real. Yeah,
like,
I get you.
If you're doing
It's got
that,
value.
like yeah, there's value. Go
Yeah.
ahead and do it.
Yeah.
But to me, I quickly realized that like companies would hire me,
Yeah.
whether I had straight A's or
Yeah,
not.
you're not an A.
No, exactly.
Like you're just like you're not like just because you got an A in this class doesn't mean Wilson is an A.
Exactly.
It just Wilson got an A in that class at
you
that
know what
time.
I'm saying? I realized
yeah.
that I had to develop
Yeah.
a whole lot more skills.
Yeah.
While I was at Georgia, one really good thing was, and I always talk about it, the Society of Entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Great club, man.
Yeah.
Made Georgia absolutely worth it for the most part.
Yeah.
I learned so much.
Yeah.
Like for the first year of my business, I was basically coasting off of what I'd learned from the Society of Entrepreneurs.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
That's basically what I coasted off of, like decision making. Like
Yeah.
I learned about things. People like spewed a lot of wisdom,
Yeah.
a lot of wise business tactics.
Yeah.
I'd read a few books and like it just helped me get through the first 2 years.
Yeah.
But then like, you know, as your business grows, you have to go back and learn new stuff because it's newer problems, newer challenges, newer breakpoints, new revenue. Like it's growing.
Yeah.
You now have to lift a lot more than you did when you first started.
Yeah. It's
But
a lot.
it really. And then that's how we kind of ran into each other again.
Yeah.
So tell that story.
So yeah, it's funny. It's the big. Oh god, I don't remember if it's December or January, but it's really close to around that time frame. And it's funny because in my business, I had just like I have come to realize that you shouldn't work for every contract that passes.
Right.
And so there was a construction company, to be named nameless, that I was working with, and they're in their process of getting better. I still bless them, right? Like because I kind of stay tuned in.
Right.
But at that moment, they didn't like who I was trying to encourage them to be. Just like when we had that conversation, you're like, I don't like who you're trying to encourage me to be right now. And sometimes my job in certain organizations is to get fired because we got to say, hey, I fired you.
Yeah.
That was telling me all this truth. And again, it's not about the paycheck. It's about what I want to see you be.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's the relationship, right?
Yeah.
And even the severing of a relationship
Yeah.
means something because like they had to recognize this truth that I was pushing them to.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh man, that was my bid contract for the year. How am I going to fill that thing? What was that? Just like was that an amazing year?
Yeah.
And we'll never get there again. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about all this stuff and I hear Rowdy. And I'm like,
That's
what?
crazy.
And I turn over and it's you, man. And you're in this like amazing, it's a Benz, I think, with the top down. And you're like, hey, man, I've been thinking about you and I'd like to contact you about doing some like facilitator work, helping people with group facilitation. Mm-hmm. We all talked. When you won the pitch, we were like, all right, man, that's one of us.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Everybody that was in contact that saw you have that win, we felt like that's a partial win.
Yeah.
Not that we would take it from you. You know what I mean? Like, all right, man. Listen, yeah, maybe I didn't see you bear fruit, but you're bearing fruit, right? You're making progress. You won this thing. People are seeing greatness. Happy to see it.
And the pitch was probably about 2 years before I started running.
Yeah, before that, right? And so you tell me, like, I'd like to contact you. And I'm like, okay, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I don't think so. But I'm going to be professional. The only way that I know that I have contacted you is through Instagram. And I'll be like, hey, if you're serious, let me know. Here's my email.
And you did.
Yep, I did. One thing that you'll find is you can't doubt anything.
Yeah.
Because you never know what will really bear fruit.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. That's what got us back in contact. It was right after I sent that message. I got the email and then we'd connected and I'd seen everything you're doing. And man, it's like, we're like at 1.5 years from that moment now.
We are. And we've stayed in contact working together through that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's been such good work.
Absolutely.
So many amazing things from amazing people.
Absolutely.
God, it's been amazing.
Some really, really cool stuff we've done. And there's so much more too.
Oh, yeah.
Really to be done, man.
I believe it. There's so much work.
Yeah.
That needs to be done.
So much cool stuff. Compare and contrast for me.
Yeah.
Where we left off, disconnected for 10 years, where we reconnected, the emotions that you had.
Oh, God. I have to admit, like, there was a part of me back then that was frustrated and a little upset with you for who you weren't deciding to be. And, like, I wasn't as patient of a person back then. And then, two, for some reason, your cohort of people really liked negative feedback. There's some people that just get addicted to negative feedback, right? So, like, they needed writing and correction, and they addicted me to giving them negative feedback versus positive feedback.
Right.
And it's hard because when you get stuck in a negative feedback loop, it's not making you your best person either, even if you're trying to do it for good reasons. And so I always kind of felt like a little bit bad because, like, I was trying to pull something out of you, but I couldn't get it. And you didn't really respond. There was a period of time when we were asking, because you don't remember it, I remember it. We were asking, what could we do to make the program better? And you were like, we should all get blazers. And we had already had shirts. And I'm like, so the difference between good and great is like not just shirts, but blazers? And like, we laughed at you.
Yeah.
We did. Like, we all laughed. And like, you took it in stride because like, you didn't get upset about that stuff because you probably were just like, oh, well, that's who you were at that time.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a big part of me that needed to be like, hey, I apologize.
No.
Because like, you were trying to do something good, but I was like, blazers? We're talking about blazers. Like, blazers is somebody the thing. But two, like, who I got to know you to be and where your heart is, because, we've had conversations about this. Because like, the entrepreneur circle has got a lot of good, amazing stuff. The financial circle has a lot of good, amazing stuff. And a lot of toxicity and weirdness and like not good-heartedness.
Yes.
That like, I mean, I don't see a lot of spirituality in either financial circle or in the entrepreneur circle.
Agreed.
There are some people that really like to pat themselves on the back. We're here to save the world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how's selling a bunch of gold going to save the world? You know what I mean? Like,
tell us, we're listening. How is it?
Like, what's it going to do? How is this like technology thing that you're selling going to save the world? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think it just sounds cool.
Yeah.
Even Google was like, do no harm. They're like, well, we're going to walk that back a bit because, profits are cool. You know what I mean? But it's hard because you cut off those things. Then you cut off the abundance that comes from those areas. And there's so much more abundance in spiritualness and good-heartedness and doing the right thing. And it's amazing because there's stuff that I'm seeing in you and where you're going and the people that you're choosing to be around. And like, it's amazing to see where you, and I don't get, we don't get to catch up like once a month. I get glimpses and snapshots.
Yeah.
Like we get deep time and I get like these, and thankfully it's not just a picture, it's like a good hour or so of who you are and where you're going. And man, I just feel so blessed to be a part of it. The fact that I get to bring people like Amy and Jim and Harry around.
Right.
And I keep meeting like good, amazing people, which is good too. But I feel blessed, not just like for the work, right? But it's also like the people that you've allowed me to be around. You know, there's folks that have been part of the program, and, you know, I don't want to say anybody's name, but like there's been folks that are finishing the program or kind of midway through it that I feel blessed to be around that come back. You know, like there's folks that are like in that halfway place. And I'm like, man, look at you. Look at where you're going. Look at what you're doing. And I'm so emboldened. And like, there's folks that will like think they want to leave, but then have to come back.
Yeah.
Man, proof of value, proof of change. They're like, yeah, I didn't think I wanted the accountability, but I actually kind of love it.
Absolutely.
I'm back because I need it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's when you know you're on a whole nother level. Man, honestly, like, our relationship's been a very interesting thing to see and watch. And it's funny because now, you know, you're so much more than, again, you know, I've got, we're a handshake agreement. We don't have contracts.
Yeah.
We work off goodwill and faith. And I'm comfortable with that. I feel good with that thing. And two, I don't ever worry because like you've never lost what I think your mom was so diligent in instilling in you. It's not about just doing well. You got to do good. And if you're not adding the good into the well, it doesn't matter much, you know? Because like, I mean, money's just this fake thing that we agree on that has value. True good is much more valuable than money. There's so much more in goodwill and help and the right thing. And so honestly, like it's funny because now I think you get to a place where you see a mentorship is it's not like this, really. A mentorship's like this, right?
Absolutely.
And this is the gift that you've grown into giving back to me. As someone who was once your professor, because now I can ask you for questions. You know, I can come to you for advice. I can ask you about like, what about this and that thing? You know, now I'm not just pouring into you, you're pouring back and you're giving back to me and my family. Again, I told you, my wife doesn't like me working for everybody. She loves me working for you. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of folks she would consider or stay that with, right? She's very selective and careful with that stuff. And so, man, it's just blessings on blessings and just deep gratitude. And it's funny because when I'm sitting and doing like stuff in front of your folks, I think they're like, oh, Rowdy, he's so great. He's doing all this stuff. I'm like, honestly, I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yeah.
Because you're teaching me things. I'm getting wisdom from you. You're smart. You're amazing. You're wonderful. Everybody hears about this is all about addiction, right? Most people, when they think about addiction, they think of the vicious cycle, right?
Correct.
You get stuck in that vicious cycle. But what they don't know is there's also a virtuous circle. And when you get caught in that, it just keeps leading you up. But it's sad that there's so much language around vicious cycle and less conversation around virtuous circle.
So virtuous versus vicious.
Yeah. And that virtuous circle is that keeps spiraling up, keeps getting better. Every day is a little bit more beautiful. And like, this is what you're starting folks on a path to. And it's funny because it doesn't just happen in one place, it happens in several places.
Absolutely.
So it's been great.
It's so awesome the kind of value you provide too, because they love you, number one. Number two, they see the value that my mentor, right, or a couple of my mentors saw in me, and they said something to me that I never forget, right? I'll never stop believing in you unless you stop believing in yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And you showed them that through your actions, right? Because, man, they love you.
Yeah.
Like, they really just enjoy having you. And that representation is really critical, too.
Yeah.
Right? That representation is really critical. And that's why it had to be you.
Yeah.
Like, because I knew other guys that, like, but it had to be you.
Yeah.
Because, like, it just was made to be that way.
It's a convergence of things bigger than us.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Because you've asked me about certain things, even with my native identity. You're like, hey, can you go around and talk to different tribes? And I'm like, I can try, but I don't have, like, some of the things that get me in the door in that same way.
Yeah.
Once they know me, it'll be great. But like, I also don't have the credentials at the front door that I can like show that are going to get me in right away, right? Like there might be another person that needs to do that thing.
Yeah.
But that also is what has endeared me to my community because I don't fake or front. I'm very honest. This is me. Like my dad was a violent, abusive alcoholic. I can't get paperwork because his family disowned us because we left. And that was a survival thing that needed to happen.
Wow.
Now, once Native people hear that story, they're like, do people like you happen? And that sucks. And that's hard for you, right? And that's one of the things I worry about with Ember because, like, I can't give him that thing.
Yeah.
But I can show him how to be in a way that connects beyond paper.
Yeah.
So And this is part of the gift that you've given me with our time together too.
Absolutely.
You know, because none of them did. They're like, you're San Carlos, you're White Mountain. You know what I mean? They'll adopt me into all those groups.
Yeah.
they're like, we'll claim
good.
you.
You're good on every res.
Absolutely, right? These are things that I wouldn't have had. And like even like with the pastor that we got to see.
Yeah, Pastor Grace. Yeah.
Right? Like the golden mic, like I still think about that and what she said about Ember with the cornerstone.
That was wild to me. That part was crazy because I was like, oh, wow, okay. But I've seen this before, kind of, sort of. But the whole name convergence, like that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Golden
beautiful
mic.
stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Rowdy, before you go, can you tell us one thing that every addict out there should know?
Yes. And I'm going to look at you. What I want to make sure you know is everything that is so powerful that has you so stuck in this moment right now, there's the opposite of that resides in you too. Everything that's keeping you stuck, hurt, low, pain, the fact that you're listening to this right now means that inside you, there's also something that's driving you to love through this addiction too, that's asking you to slowly wake up to the opportunity of now. Like you may think there's no good or nothing in you that's redeemable, but the fact that you're here in this moment and that you haven't hit stop yet, the fact that you're still continuing to listen, even though I'm telling you something absolutely terrifying, means that deep within you, there's enough love, there's enough resilience that you don't have to stay here anymore. This is just the place that you needed to be for a time. But it's funny because, like, you know, they call it hit bottom. And like, there's two ways you can hit bottom. You can hit bottom and splat and stay stuck, or you can bounce. And most folks that get better bounce. You don't hit bottom that hard and not bounce. This is an opportunity that exists in you. And I didn't believe you. I wouldn't tell you because, again, I'm an addict too. I can't lie to you. I love you too much to not, even though we haven't met. You have that gift within you. And I know I'm stirring something in you. Let it marinate. Don't not listen to it. Like fan that little spark, that little flame, that little like smoke that's rising within you in this moment. Oh my God, that ember of something within you. I didn't plan this. And let it become something big. And then that fire of change is going to erupt with you. And who knows where your life will go.
Absolutely. It's possible. Like we always say, recovery is a process that turns into a miracle.
It is.
And thank you, Rowdy.
Oh, thank you.
It was really, really great having you today.
Yeah,
man.
I appreciate it.
Awesome.
It's a blessing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And that's a wrap today. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have an excellent day and go be great. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Sober Social Club podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review and feel free to share it with somebody you think might benefit from this. Don't forget to tune in next week for another inspiring episode. Until then, remember, tough times don't last. Tough men do. Stay strong and keep living your best life.